Megan Browne. I am an early childhood student support facilitator that works for Special School District. Today we're going to be talking about bowel withholding. So a little information about myself. I am the ECSE Student Support Facilitator. I am also a parent of a child who has struggled for many years with bowel holding and then the long-term side effects that come along with that. And that started at about age 3, and he is currently 12. I'm not a medical expert, but the information that comes to you today is via research that I have done or firsthand experiences that I have lived through with my own personal child. So to get us started here, it is going to be important to understand the normal bowel movement process. And like I said, I'm not a medical expert, so I'm not going to try to explain that to you. Instead, we're going to be watching clips from a video called The Poo in You. You can access this video via YouTube. It comes from the Children's Hospital in Colorado, and it's some great information and might even be applicable to show to your own child who's struggling with bowel holding.
The purpose of this video is to explain why soiling accidents occur and to help you understand what you can do to stop them from happening. Poo accidents can be embarrassing. Many children who have accidents can't tell when they're coming, and they're not able to stop them from happening. However, it doesn't always have to be this way. When we eat food, it travels from the mouth, down the throat, and into the stomach. In the stomach, the body begins to break down the food. The food then turns into a liquid, and this liquid leaves the stomach and enters the small intestine. The small intestine is a long, twisted tube where nutrients are absorbed into the body. The body uses these nutrients to help you grow and gives you energy to do all the things you like play, run, sing, or whatever you're interested in. The unneeded and unabsorbed liquid becomes poo and travels into the large intestine. Sometimes the large intestine is called the colon. When the poo enters the large intestine, it is liquid. As it travels through the colon, water is absorbed back into the body and the poo becomes more solid. The poo eventually comes to the end of the colon, also known as the rectum. At the very bottom of the rectum is a band of muscle called the anal sphincter. When the poo puts pressure on this muscle, a message is sent to the brain saying it's time to poop. The person then decides if they are going to use the bathroom now or hold it to go later. If the person decides to go, the anal sphincter relaxes and the poo comes out.
Okay, we are going to come back and watch this video in its entirety, but I'm going to talk a little bit in between. So just to kind of talk about some definition of helpful terms, we've all heard the word constipation. So that is defined as the delayed or infrequent passage of hard stools. It's typically defined by 2 primary symptoms. So more than 3 days can pass between bowel movements, or a child is struggling with hard and large stools that are passed with pain. Also want to let you know that constipation can also be a term that is used when your child is not pooping to completion. Another term that you might hear is encopresis. This is a medical term, and it is defined as the repeated episodes of stool soiling in children who are more than 4 years old. So this is looking at children who have already been potty trained, but they are still struggling with episodes of stool soiling and accidents and issues with constipation. Stool soiling, otherwise known as, depending on who you might be working with or medical experts or therapists, they might be called leaks, soils. Some might call them accidents. I know a lot of people have moved away from that term accident and kind of trying to make it a little bit more positive in terms of these are leaks and soils that you're unaware of that are happening. The leakage of stool that a child cannot control. Stool soiling is common and usually happens because the child is constipated and has a large amount of stool in the colon. Stool soiling is usually involuntary, like they mentioned in the video. Kids tend to lose the feeling or even the smell and the sensation. And that can always cause feelings of anxiety, shame, and guilt for a child. Because I tend to work with a lot of families and teachers in my role as a facilitator, and then also with my own experiences, I do get asked a lot from people if there is an increase in the amount of withholding cases. It's a question I asked a lot of the medical experts that we saw as well. Constipation is common during typically common during times of change in routine, during changes in eating or drinking habits, and if there's a change in living arrangements or like going on a trip. It's not uncommon for constipation to happen during those 3 times. So if we look at what's happening developmentally with our kids, potty training in the toilet training process is a huge change of routine for our kiddos. So that may cause just some usual constipation when you are dealing with the toilet training process, and that is natural and it might occur. So when we look at changes in eating and drinking habits, most 3 and 4-year-olds tend to have a change in their food habits. They might not eat the fruits and vegetables that they ate when they were a toddler or when they were a baby. So they start to get more picky and things. So this is going to have a huge impact on how long that constipation is going to last. And then change in living arrangements. If we go on a trip and things, constipation might be common, but it's also these days not uncommon for preschool children to live in 2 different homes. And so that anxiety could also tend to lead to some more long-term constipation. But typical constipation can resolve in a few days or weeks. But for some kids, there may be other reasons that might cause some long-term constipation. And some of those reasons might be that maybe perhaps there's some medical problems that are affecting stooling. So those are things that you're definitely going to want to get checked out. Kids get in a pattern of holding stool back, and then it just becomes this cycle and this pattern that they keep repeating and have a hard time breaking themselves out of. Perhaps some kids who struggle with long-term constipation, maybe it's because they had a hard time with toilet training. So perhaps the toilet training process was overly stressful, or it was happening during extreme time of change, or maybe they weren't quite ready to handle the toilet training process, but we moved forward in it anyway. Also, I think it happens a lot, and it's been happening for a long time, but people just don't talk about it. It's just not common vernacular to talk about poop when you're in public and to let everybody know that those issues are happening. Another reason could be lack of control of pelvic floor muscles, because with repeated patterns of constipation, we've stretched that colon so much. Another theory that I talked to a potty training guru is she says maybe one of the reasons we have more withholding cases around BMs is because we now have disposable diapers, and there's the lack of kids actually seeing poop in the toilet. So if you think about, way back when maybe all we had available was cloth diapers, the child would poop in the diaper, and what would you do? You would walk over to the toilet and you would dump the large amount of poop in the toilet, flush the toilet. Kids would see the poop going down the toilet. But with disposable diapers and things now, I don't even know if kids are seeing poop when they poop. So are they even understanding that, oh, I felt this way in my stomach, this happened in my pants, but I haven't seen it because it got rolled up into a diaper and thrown into the trash. So that's a possible theory about, this lack of understanding about where poop's supposed to go. And then possibly we just have an extreme backup of stool in the colon, and that's going to lead to some long-term constipation issues. So I'm going to come back to this video when pooping becomes a problem. So to poo or not to poo.
Problems occur when the person decides to hold it and not go to the bathroom. As the poo sits in the rectum, water continues to be absorbed by the colon and the stools become harder and harder. And as more food is digested, more poo continues to come into the rectum. The rectum grows bigger and bigger, and if this keeps happening, the poo begins to back up into the colon. Eventually, the person finally goes to the bathroom and the poo is very large and hard. What's worse is that it will hurt to poop. This is called constipation. The rectum is like a balloon. The first time it's blown up, it returns back to its original shape and size. However, if it's repeatedly blown up, it eventually becomes big, flabby, and weak. This stretched out rectum becomes a large holding area for poo, setting up the process to repeat itself. And with an overstretched rectum, some children lose the urge to poop. The body then gets sneaky. Remember, when poo first enters the colon, it is liquid. When the new liquid poo meets with the old hard poo, the liquid poo slides through the hard poo and comes out as smears in the underwear. This cannot be controlled and usually is not even felt. Others can tell this has happened by the smell, but children having poo problems many times don't even smell this.
So if you have a child that is struggling with constipation, you know firsthand that it probably only takes one large, hard stool to pass, that it's going to scare them, and they're going to then try to delay that process of having any future BMs. So they're afraid that it's going to hurt again, and then they start that process and they hold it back, and their experiences are going to reinforce that determination to hold their stools, and then the cycle's repeated over and over again. So oftentimes, we see those behaviors firsthand because what they look like is the child turns red, they might stiffen, they might start sweating, they're going to be crying, perhaps they're standing in the corner, maybe they're laying on the floor or holding on to a table and a chair. I've seen that behavior in lots of kids, and myself included and other people. I've also heard adults around them saying, it's okay, just, push it out. We look at them and they look as if they're trying to push the stool out, but in fact, they're not. They're working very, very hard to keep that stool in at that moment. So, possibly we're telling them it's okay, just push it out. And they're like, no, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep this back in. So normal bowel movements should not have to be pushed out. The muscles need to relax in order for the stool to pass. So these children are working really, really hard against their sphincter muscles to hold that in. And then that's what's going to cause that colon to be stretched and stretch, just like that great analogy of the balloon. And then over time, when that is happening and it doesn't have its elasticity to go back, is when we start to see an increase in those soils and those leaks. And then all of the behaviors that go along with not being able to control it, not maybe understanding what's happening, not being able to smell it, but then maybe being told that you need to go into the bathroom. So it can really become, unfortunately, a vicious cycle. So I will talk a little bit about the parent perspective. So it's only my own personal perspective. But my son potty trained at age 3, and he did great with urine trained. He was trained in a day, absolutely no problem. But that is right when our issues with bowel holding began. He had a very hard time understanding that he needed to sit and relax on the toilet in order to poop. So I would find him hiding behind couches, standing. He would hold the poop for 3 to 4 to 5 days at a time and was very, very scared to go. So that was our challenge. For my kiddo, he didn't want to see the poop. He didn't want to smell it. He didn't want to look at it. He didn't want to flush it down the toilet. So everything about that was very scary for him. So hence it started this pattern of holding. Now, we've been on a very long journey with this. Like I said, it started at age 3 and he just turned 12 this year. And I will say that we have been dealing with it for 9 years. We would have, good days, good months, where there were no concerns, no issues. Then we might have a couple bad months and a lot of behaviors and things that went along with that. There were days that we would laugh about poop. There were days that we were screaming and crying about poop, but definitely there was always poop. These cycles tremendously impacted our entire family. So if you're dealing with this currently, you probably know where I'm coming from, but then there's just a lot of anxiety around when it's going to happen. So it's going to affect family outings. Well, can we go and do this if we're really worried that we might not have access to a bathroom and all the supplies that we need while we're there? Are we going to have to leave and go home because he had an accident? Is somebody else going to smell it or to realize he's having these issues? You start to panic when you realize you're at a campground and you have nothing to clean it up and no more extra clothes. It causes a lot of fear and anxieties, which then we know can bring out not so great behaviors in the parent and the child. We stayed very quiet about this for a very long time. My immediate family didn't even know we were dealing with such issues. And I sought out lots of medical experts, saw some pediatric gastroenterologists, saw some behavior therapists for it. He was seeing a play therapist, and that would help for some time. And then we'd kind of see a repeated pattern over again. We took him to chiropractors, hoping that maybe we could get down to it that way. We did a 1.5 years of outpatient pelvic floor muscle therapy to kind of, by his age, when he was 10 doing that, his colon was so stretched that we needed to get that elasticity back. So we did a lot of yoga. We did a lot of exercises, sought guidance with a lot of different medical professionals. And what kind of put the pieces together for us was my son did do a week-long stay at Rankin Jordan Bridge Hospital about 1 year ago, where we really kind of worked pretty intensely on getting this under control. So I speak out now because I know how dark of a place that this can be for families, for parents, for the child. And I would really like to spare families having to take a path that might be unproductive and that they can avoid going down. So some things from the child perspective too, I've done, quite a few interviews with my kid, talked about it. He's 12 now. We can look back and get some more understanding. But through this whole process and through the years, some things I noticed with him was he would start to hide his dirty underwear because he either was ashamed, or if he found it, he didn't want anybody to know about it, or he was trying to avoid, any emotion that went with it. So then I would start finding dirty underwear like under his bed or under his dresser. Have no idea how long those things had been under there. Started to see a lot of lying about whether or not he had pooped in the toilet actually, or in his pants. He wouldn't let anybody see it. I don't think he was looking at it himself. If we smelled it on him and we called him out on it, it had caused a lot of increase in behaviors, yelling, defiance, shame, anxiety. He really lost the ability to smell or feel it in his underwear. I mean, that is a true statement from that video. I would smell it way before he would. He would tell me he could never smell it. He didn't know it was in his underwear until he went into the bathroom and actually looked. So again, all those behaviors that go along with, hey, let's take care of this. You got to stop playing video games or stop doing what you're doing outside to come in and clean yourself up. And that takes a lot of time. And he just frankly wasn't willing to do it. But then it started to impact his ability to attend events. He couldn't go to sleepovers. He wasn't able to go on week-long campouts with scouts. I was even fearful about him going to a friend's house for fear that his friends would notice or they would smell it on him, and then might not know what to say to him. So unfortunately, it can create other issues behaviorally and emotionally than just the actual act of soiling in your pants. So I'm going to come back to this video because it can get better.
The good news is that it doesn't have to be this way. You can stop your body from having accidents with just a few easy steps. The most important thing to do is to sit on the toilet every day and try to have a poop. The best time to sit on the toilet is after eating. Our bodies have a special reflex. When we eat, our stomachs tell our colon to make room by letting the stored poo out. So you should sit on the toilet after breakfast, after lunch, and after dinner. The way you sit on the toilet is important too. Your feet should be flat on the floor. If your feet can't reach the floor, a stepping stool will be needed. This will make it easier to push the poo out. Also, you should sit up straight. Some children like to sit forward. When this is done, only some of the poo will come out. Other children stiffen and cross their legs. This tightens the muscles, and again, not all of the poo will come out. By sitting up straight and relaxing, this will ensure that all the poo comes out each time you go. By following these steps every day, a big and flabby rectum will return back to normal, but it can take up to a year for the rectum to regain its original size and tone. Your parents might be asked to give you medicines to help keep your poo soft and help your body push it out. A medicine called polyethylene glycol, sometimes also known as Miralax, draws water back into the colon, and this helps keep the poo soft. And when the poo is soft, it won't hurt to go to the bathroom. Sometimes another medicine called Senna will also be added to your body to help push out all of the poo. So by sitting on the toilet every day and having a poo, you will prevent the backup of poo into your colon. Your stools will stay soft and will be easy to pass. And best of all, there will be no accidents.
Okay, I know that can be hard to hear that, it could take up to a year if we have a stretched out colon. To be honest, I don't know how many poops it takes to actually stretch a colon. I've only heard the research that it takes about a year to get it back. So I'm going to add some additional things about what we can do now, in addition to what was mentioned in that video. So the proper toileting position, most definitely. You want to make sure that when your child is sitting on the toilet, they have a footstool so their feet are not hanging from the toilet. Knees a little bit higher than the hips. I wouldn't have your kid lean too far forward. The video said about 90 degrees. Advice we got was just a little bit forward, but not leaning all the way forward like most kids do. Bulging out your abdomen and straightening up your spine, which can be hard for kids to maintain that position in the toilet for some time. But this is definitely where we want to start with the proper toileting position. Okay, timed toileting. I am going to say that this is going to be one of the biggest things that you can do to get this under control. We need to be having timed toileting multiple times a day, or call them practice sits if you want. It is ideal to start that after every meal, like was mentioned in the video. Maybe start with about 5 to 10 minutes, but you want to work up to ideally to about 20 minutes. Some kids are having such a hard time learning how to relax that it's going to take them longer than just sitting on the toilet for a minute or so to learn how to do this. So we need to spend some time working on this. My advice is to work on these time toileting 3 to 4 to 5 times a day. Call them practice sits if you need to. So you're not only putting your child on the toilet when they are constipated and when their stool is backed up in the colon and they need to poop. So it's about learning how to retrain your body to sit on the toilet to relax, especially if kiddos have been standing to poop or are in so much pain that they're laying on the floor and they're curled up in a ball. We need to retrain the body how to relax and to sit on the toilet to have a proper poop. So timed toilets are really important. It's going to be probably the hardest part of these recommendations, but I'm going to talk about some things you can do to encourage that behavior in just a minute. All right, so reassessing your child's fluids and fiber. This is going to be important too. If you have a kiddo who's a picky eater and has a bad diet, we need to work on that as well. So the recommendation for a kid with the amount of water that they should receive per day is if you have a child weighing 25 to 50 pounds, they should be drinking anywhere between 4 and 7 cups of water a day. I don't know about you, but I know for certain my 5-year-old is not getting that much water during the day. So we really need to look at ways that we can increase that water intake. So whether it be some special fancy cups or a swirly straw or a bell or something, a timed bell goes off when it's time to go get a drink of water. So anything that you could do to think outside of the box to include that fluid. In terms of fiber, so the typical recommendation is you take your child's age in years plus 5. That's how many grams of fiber they should have per day. So you can look up on the internet foods that are high in fiber and try to figure out their amount of grams of fiber per day. But changing that amount of fiber is definitely going to help with the proper stool and not being constipated. Okay, so one other thing that we want to do while we're working through this process is we want to document. So I'm going to brace yourself here for just a minute because I am about to pull up a picture of stools. This is called the Bristol stool chart. And it exists. It's out there if you've never seen it before. It categorizes the stool into 7 different numbers. What you want your poop to ideally look like is a 3, 4, and a 5. Okay, so 4 being the most ideal. That's going to show that we have good fluid and fiber intake and we have a good diet and we're making proper passage of bowel movements. So 3, 4, and 5 is kind of that range you want to hit. Type 4, also we know it's a good poop if it has tapered ends. I know, probably more than you ever wanted to know about poop, but welcome to my world. I know a lot about it. So when we know that our kids are having this type 1 poop, we're having really hard, lumps, or it's like sausage shaped and lumpy, that's where we know we need to increase the fluids and the fibers, or we need to look at a medication. Type 7 is going to be watery, diarrhea. We need to change something in the diet or the medication there. So it is important to know the stools and what they look like when they are passed. So I encourage you to start documenting that with your kid. Maybe have the stool chart. They can help you. They can help identify it, or at least you can look and document what their stool is looking like with each sit when they do go to the bathroom. Take that picture away for you. So what we want to document is the stool chart. We would want to also document any leaks and accidents. So maybe we could see like what time of day they are, having bowel movements and having these leaks and accidents, what was occurring. Are we having these leaks and accidents more when it's after school and it's free choice and we're just kind of relaxing at home because we don't want to take the time to go to the bathroom? Or are we having these accidents more in the morning because we really do need to have a poop? So it gives you some good information when you have documentation over a couple weeks to kind of look and see what's going on. And then also I would document the amount of fiber and fluids your child is getting. This will be great information too if you are seeing any sort of medical professional, because they can help you sort out how much and which medications might be beneficial. And over-the-counter medications as well, they can help with that. So seek medical support. Definitely would like to encourage you to see your pediatrician or go see a pediatric gastroenterologist. I know from firsthand experience and from talking to a lot of people as well that a lot of medical support are just going to go, just give them some Miralax, clean them out, and then they'll be good to go to start all over again. And that's fortunately not anything that I found helpful. Miralax was not helpful for my kid. I didn't know how much he was really getting. It just didn't seem to work. He would have like blowouts, we'd clean him out, but then we didn't have the whole rest of the process in place for the time sits and everything else to supplement the Miralax. that it just really wasn't helpful. And to potty train a kid on Miralax is really hard because you really kind of have no control depending on how soft that stool can get. So I encourage you to seek medical support and to ask about other medications, because there are other over-the-counter drugs out there, like Senna that was mentioned. There are squeezers and there are softeners, and it's about finding the right balance and the right dose. So when you have that documentation, it's going to help with what medication you might need to be on next. I also encourage you to seek any behavioral support because, like I said, in my own experiences and with lots of experiences with families that I've worked with, this is going to cause some behavioral problems in your home. And we want this to still be a positive experience, something that we have to intentionally work on. And if we're constantly battling and constantly fighting it, we're not going to see success very quickly. So there are school-based facilitators like myself and other facilitators in early childhood. We're happy to help you with the behavioral piece of it. Community therapists are available as well. And possibly for preschool age children, a play therapist might be the best route to go just to get some additional guidance for families and kiddos. And then maybe trying to find somebody who has some experience dealing with encopresis and this type of behaviors. So you want to make that work intentional, consistent, and positive. And I know that's really easy for me to preach and to tell you, yeah, we need to make it intentional, be consistent, be positive. And I've been not in any of these places, and I have seen firsthand how challenging it can be when you stop making the work intentional or when there's such a negative emphasis on it. So I encourage you to reach out, to start talking to people and get the support that you need so that this can be a positive process. I read this in the information I researched from and got from Rankin Jordan too, is that none of these recommendations are difficult to complete in isolation. But most families will find that being consistent with all parts simultaneously is challenging. And yep. I can absolutely agree with that. It is going to be challenging. It is going to be something you need to do intentionally, but it is also going to be worth your time. You will see progress when you can put all of these parts together. Okay, so again, here is just another example of the Bristol Stool Scale. Again, it will tell you if your child has constipation or if we need to look at some more fiber. Those things can easily be found on the internet as well. Okay, so some additional things. How do I keep my child on the toilet? And should I reward my child just for sitting on the toilet? Okay, I know 20 minutes on a toilet for a preschooler is going to be a really, really long time. That's why I say start with a couple minutes and build up. So to keep our kids sitting on the toilet, we need to think outside of the box and find things that are going to be appropriate to do in the bathroom while your child is sitting. So perhaps it could be a basket in the bathroom that maybe has some preferred books in it, maybe some preferred manipulatives or little toys to play with. Consider maybe headphones and music, dry erase boards and markers. So basket of things that are just special for our practice sit times or our timed toileting times, whatever you want to call it at home. And yes, we are going to reward our child just for sitting on the toilet. Okay. This is the process that we need to work on. So we're going to reward our child for sitting on the toilet. And we can do that in a variety of ways. So perhaps maybe you'll have a sticker chart that you might want to use with your child. So every time they sit, they could earn a sticker. Or if they actually produce a poop, maybe they get 2 stickers. Or maybe it's marbles or pom-poms or cotton balls in a jar. And then as we fill the jar up, then we get a bigger reward or a token or a small item from the dollar store. Nothing too big and fancy, because again, we don't want to down the road having to be rewarding a child every single time they poop. But we are going to need to think outside this box to get some of that reinforcement going. Perhaps have a poop party. I just talked to someone the other day who was planning a poop party for her kiddo who had earned all her tokens in the jar, and then they had a little celebration. They make lots of poop emoji toys, as you're probably aware of, headbands, poop banners, all sorts of things, funny poop fidget toys. So have fun with it. Make it intentional again. But again, you're going to want to be reinforcing the sitting. Okay, so we're not working on going in for these practice sits or this time toileting to produce something every time. We are going to work on just reinforcing. We got to get you into the toilet. We've got to start this process. It will keep the process positive when you reward for sitting, because you're going to avoid spending your time and energy punishing your child if they don't produce something. If you're only giving them a token or a marble for producing something, that's might be hard for your kid. So we want to reward that sitting. I am asked a lot about electronics while kids are sitting, and here's kind of my personal take on that. If it's like watching a video or maybe listening to music, I think those things are okay. But I would try to encourage not giving your child an electronic toy that they're having to play games with or manipulate, because then they're not going to learn how to relax while they're sitting. They're going to be too into that game and focusing on that they're not going to have the proper position, and they're not going to be focusing on relaxing their body for the poop to come out. That's just probably going to create more tension and more tightening of the colon. So I recommend, if you're going to use any sort of electronic for rewarding, that it's maybe just something to watch or to look at. There is lots of children's literature about constipation and encopresis. So here's just a couple books that I pulled off of. I do have an additional list that I will post with this video. Of course, there's the book, Everyone Poops. It's a funny book about animals pooping and what it looks like. So if you have a kid who just doesn't like to talk about poop or look at poop, this might be a good book to start. It Hurts When I Poop and I Can't, I Won't, No Way. Those are specifically geared towards kids that have the challenge of encopresis. So that might be something you want to look at as well. And again, I will post a full list next to the video on the ECSE Family Channel website. All right, we know your kids are not with you at home all day long, and they do go to school. So what can I ask my child's school to do to support our work at home? I encourage you to ask and talk to your child's teachers about this. If they don't already know, because accidents have been, not happening at school or they're not aware, I encourage you to have this conversation and then find out what the toileting position at school looks like. Most preschool bathrooms are, have toilets that are low enough that their kids' feet touch the floor, but find out, do I need to provide a stool for the school, for the bathroom? Do I need to provide an activity basket of preferred items that can be kept at school? Ask if they can put your child on the toilet for a couple minutes after snack, or if your kid's there all day, can they go after snacks? Can they go after lunch? Can they go before rest time? Can they go after rest time? And then ask if there maybe is a private bathroom. Most school age kids that are going to kindergarten and beyond, the nurses have private bathrooms, and you can set up a plan with them to have all the supplies and things that are necessary for cleanup and a change of clothes, and a private bathroom for your school age kid to do their timed toileting. I would also ask your child's teachers to help with encouraging the child to drink more water. There's many benefits of kids having water bottles at school and having free access to drinking water. But if you specifically are working on the issue of encopresis, I would send a water bottle and ask your teachers to allow the child to have frequent access. So to give reminders that they need to go drink some water. And then if possible, you could ask your teachers to assist you with documenting at school. So maybe ask if they will help document what time your kid went in, was a bowel movement produced, or if there are any accidents and things at school. So all of this is just going to help with that intentionality and that consistency. Kids will start to realize, like, hey, I'm working on this at home. I can work on it at school too. Maybe there'll be more successes at school than there will be at home. So then you can have some positive pieces to their day around it at some point. But don't be afraid to ask. Unfortunately, due to the setup of this video, I don't have an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions and answers, but I will put my email next to this video as well if you at all wanted to contact me. Here's just some additional resources. The Children's Hospital here in St. Louis offers a constipation a parent's guide, and their website is there. Rankin Jordan Pediatric Bridge Hospital, I have a lot of information that I got from their functional constipation handbook. Again, the Bristol Stool Scale. I encourage you, if you think your child can handle it, to watch the video on YouTube, The Poo and You. And then again, I will put a longer list of children's literatures next to the video on the family channel. Thanks so much for joining me today. I know this is a lot of information to absorb, but I wish you the best of luck if this is a path that you are starting to tackle. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.